Hi, I know that telling Argentina and Uruguay can sometimes be very difficult on Geoguessr for some, and I agree, it is very tricky. So I thought that in case you end up in a 50-50 situation, I could show you the different ways I use to tell the countries apart. I guess one of the simplest ways to recognize Uruguay are these bollards, as we call them, the sticks you would see following the roads. They're white, and they will also have a yellow backside. You'll see this yellow little rectangle here. It's only in Uruguay, and Argentina does not have any bollard whatsoever. So if you see these, you're definitely in Uruguay. This is actually the first thing I usually look for when I'm trying to tell Argentina and Uruguay apart. And it's if I can see a small little dot on the license plate. Argentina has dots, and you can see them on many of the cars. Here's one. You can also see one over here and one over here, and you will see them a lot. It's the easiest way to recognize Argentina if you end up in a city, and it's always the first thing I will always look for. That being said, Uruguay has plain white plates. There's no dot on them. Just plain, boring white plate. There's nothing distinguishing them, honestly. It's just a general white plate. They're also a little bit longer compared to the Argentinian ones. At least in my observation. I could be wrong. But in my observation, they usually appear a little bit longer than the Argentinian ones. So yeah, if you see a dot, you're in Argentina. So if you see double dashed lines, you're in Uruguay. They like to have like a white line enclosed by two yellow ones. That does never ever happen in Argentina. And another thing to notice is that Uruguay's roads are usually in a slightly worse condition than the Argentinian ones. I think I have a better example actually. Here's one example of a road looking slightly worse. Like the lines are a bit washed out, and there are a lot of holes that have been fixed. It generally just in worse condition. And here you have an Argentinian road. Already you can see that the roads are in better condition, and you can also see double yellow lines not enclosed by a white one, which is common in Argentina. If you play a lot of Geoguessr, you already know that both Uruguay and Argentina uses the black car for their generation tree coverage. But Argentina has Gen 4, which is the brightly colored camera generation. The colors are bright and everything looks generally very beautiful. Argentina has that. Okay, here you can see some Gen 4 coverage. The car is blue, which usually happens in Gen 4 coverage. And you can also see that the colors are very vibrant, very saturated, looking very pretty and gorgeous, which is quite common for Gen 4. This type of coverage does not exist in Uruguay. So if you see this, if you had before seen the black car, then for sure you're in Argentina. And I want to make it clear that it's only if you have seen the black car before or after you see the blue one. Because if you only seen the blue car, there are other Spanish-speaking countries that also uses the blue car, such as Mexico and Spain. But to rule out those two countries from Argentina, you could look at the sun. Because if the sun is in the north, then you're in Argentina. But if the sun is in the south, then it's probably either Mexico or Spain, if they speak Spanish. Make sure they don't speak Portuguese, because Brazil also uses the blue car. Oh, and a side note, the black car can also show up in Peru, so make sure you rule out Peru before you rely on the black car. Uruguay usually has white wooden poles across the roads. You can also see these like rectangular holes on them that are quite big. They're not always there, but quite often. And they're quite helpful when you want to recognize Uruguay. In Argentina, you have these RN kilometer markers that are quite helpful in recognizing. So if you see white wooden poles, it's usually Uruguay. And if you see RN roads, it's Argentina. A cool thing I noticed quite recently is that Uruguay usually has these poles that looks a lot like a trident. I have never seen those in Argentina, and I don't think I've seen them anywhere else either. And they are quite distinctive, to say the least, and I think those can be very helpful in recognizing Uruguay. Let me know if I'm wrong, honestly. I'm not 100%, but it's something that I've noticed quite recently. So please tell me if I'm wrong. There are beautiful comments down below. And when it comes to Argentina, they have a lot of concrete poles. A lot of them, actually. Chunky, big concrete poles. I think I've seen wooden ones as well, but never one like this. Never seen one of those. The landscape is usually the trickiest part in my opinion, since they often look very similar, both Uruguay and Argentina. And this is Uruguay. It looks a bit like this. It's generally quite flat, I would say. And if you compare it to Argentina, in the generally same area, Argentina looks like this. So it's very difficult to tell the difference here. They are looking very similar when it comes to landscape if you're around the same area. But there are ways you can tell them apart from the landscape, and one of them is if you see mountains. And here you see a part of the Andes, the mountain chain that shares the border between Chile and Argentina. Uruguay does not have it. They don't have mountains like that. So if you see mountains, I bet you're in Argentina if the car is black. Make sure the car is black. And sometimes in very, very, very northern Argentina, you can find a desert. A big, empty, sandy desert. And I bet you won't find that in Uruguay. I'll bet you that. Oh, and one last thing. If you see these, it's an Argentinian gasoline company. Those only exist there. You will see them quite a bit. I mean, since there are gas stations. It's not that big of a shock, I guess. And that's all I had to say. So if you have anything you think I should have added, or if you think I should continue making videos like this, please leave a comment, give it a like, and give it a follow. I kind of like doing these, and it's very helpful for me as well, learning the differences between the countries with the ones that I sometimes struggle with. So I am very much up for making more of these. So if you think so I should do that, please let me know. And otherwise, I hope you have a great day or great evening, depending on when you see this. And take care of yourself. Bye!